for resolving the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
But Israel has to work toward a two-state solution. You're not going to like my saying this, but not build more settlements, dismantle existing outposts, and allow the Palestinians freedom of movement based on their first actions, access to economic opportunity, and increased security responsibility.
Israel, under the leadership of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, has not endorsed the proposal to create a Palestinian state and is more focused on...
While visiting the West Bank city of Ramallah, U.S. Vice President Joe Biden publicly scolded Israel for the second day over its new plan to build 1,600 homes for Jewish settlers in East Jerusalem.
It's incumbent on both parties to build an atmosphere of support for negotiations and not to complicate them. Yesterday, the decision by the Israeli government to advance planning for new housing units in East Jerusalem undermines that very trust.
At a joint press conference, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas also criticized the decision by the Israeli government.
The decisions that the Israeli government announced in the last 2 days and the construction of thousands of new housing units on Palestinian land represent a demolition of confidence and a strong blow to the effort which has been put in the past months to launch the indirect negotiations.
Abbas called on Israel to reverse its decision, but gave no indication that indirect peace talks with Israel would not proceed. John Decker, Reuters.
The timing of the announcement, if not necessarily the decision itself, has been criticized in the Israeli media, and even by members of the government of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
It shouldn't have happened, definitely not on the day when the Vice President of the United States, a close friend and ally of Israel, who represents an administration who is the closest administration to Israel, is here.
The aim of indirect peace talks between Israelis and Palestinians had seemed a modest one. But after these developments, even such a small achievement would now be seen as a success.
From your point of view, how much time is available to the world before Iran gets a nuclear weapon, given what they're doing today?
Sure, again, probably best for a closed session. But,
Gotcha.
But I mean, it has thankfully slid to the right a bit, and it is not this calendar year, I don't think.
Okay. But it's not forever either.
It is not infinite.
Lawmakers to provide critical votes in the House for the overhaul. Israel's ambassador to the United States, Michael Oren, has reportedly said U.S.-Israeli relations are facing their worst crisis in 35 years. Oren's comments came 1 week after Israel announced it would build 1,600 new homes in the settlement of Ramat Shlomo. Israel made the announcement just as Vice President Joseph Biden arrived in the country for talks. On Friday, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton told Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu the announcement harmed the bilateral relationship between the two countries. In an interview on Meet the Press, Clinton described Israel's actions as insulting.
It was not just an unfortunate incident of timing, but the substance was something that is not needed as we are attempting to move toward the resumption of negotiations. It was insulting, and it was insulting not just to the Vice President, who certainly didn't deserve that. He was there with a very clear message of commitment to the peace process, solidarity with the Israeli people, but it was an insult to the United States.
White House senior advisor David Axelrod described Israel's actions as very destructive.
This was an affront, it was an insult, but most importantly, it undermined this very fragile effort to bring peace to that region. We just now have started proximity talks, that is, shuttle diplomacy between the Palestinians and the Israelis, and for this announcement to come at that time was very, very destructive.
On Sunday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu voiced regret over the announcement of the Jewish settlement plan, but he did not give any sign that Israel would cancel the construction project. Meanwhile, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee has condemned the recent statements by the Obama White House. The Pentagon